Hi, welcome back to my channel and happy holidays. If you're new here, please subscribe because it motivates me to create more videos, and if you're not new here, well, sorry for posting once a year. Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to share a few different ways to improve your digital art, but I'm pretty sure some of these tips can apply to traditional art as well. And the good thing is, no matter your skill level, you can try this right away, so don't worry if you're a beginner or if you feel lost with your art and want to improve it or change something about it, you're fine. Okay, so let's start with the beginning. You start sketching something, but it doesn't come out as good as you imagined it, and so obviously you get frustrated about it because you feel like your skills are just not helping at all. Moments like this can shift your mindset pretty badly to the point where you just don't feel like drawing anything at all for a while and you become art blocked. So I recommend using references for the things you don't understand how to draw yet. I know there are people who preach about how using references is considered cheating or wrong, but that's just not true. References help us understand, analyze, and observe the objects that we want to draw, and without using them, we would improve at a much slower rate. Just think about how confident you feel once you understand something, once you know how it works. Well, this confidence will transfer to your lines when sketching, as simple as that. Also, it might be better, creatively speaking, if you looked for a reference after you've already thought about your composition, because if you search for a reference first, that might influence you to pick up the details of the reference instead of following your initial vision. But it depends what you're going for, I guess. I actually use references 95% of the time. I have a bunch of bust and full body references saved on Pinterest, and without them, I would probably struggle a lot with the poses. If I want to draw something super specific, I take pictures of myself and use them as reference, but sketching without the reference is just a big no for me. I think it's just unnecessary stress that I don't want to deal with, you know? And if you'd like me to do a video about choosing the right references, let me know in the comments below, since there are a lot of pictures that might confuse you rather than help you. Moving on to choosing the right colors. No matter your skill level, choosing a visually pleasing color combination is a really important aspect of the painting, because the colors can either make it or break it. So here I already knew what my color palette was gonna be, since I was joining a drawing challenge, but even so, I didn't go for the exact same colors as the original painting because they wouldn't fit my art style. So what I did is I went with similar colors that give you the overall vibe of the original piece. I mentioned this before, but if you're struggling with choosing a color palette, there's this site I use sometimes that might help you find a nice color palette. Like, just see what colors go well with each other and what combination you find most appealing. Once you find one, you can experiment with their hues, saturation, and brightness until you're happy with the result, just like I did here. I basically color picked the original colors and then played around with each one of them until I found the right combination for me. Now, I don't know if this is a tip on its own. I think it's rather an addition to the previous tip, but unless you're painting a black and white piece, please stay away from using these colors as they are. Instead, go for similar colors that feel like black and white, because it will make your painting look more cohesive without any harsh areas. I often see extremely white highlights on portraits or even pure black shadows, and they just don't benefit your painting at all. They come off as a bit too strong on the eyes, if you know what I mean. So it's best if you just stay away from these colors in general. The next tip is about using hard edges and soft edges simultaneously. Once again, it doesn't really matter if your art style is more cartoony or realistic. This can be applied to pretty much any style you're going for, and as an example, I chose two artists that have very different art styles to show you what I mean. Here we have Sam and Sarah, who I've noticed use this technique pretty often, so I think they make a good example for this tip. Notice how they have these hard edges here and there that kind of break the pattern of the soft blending we see in the rest of the painting. This is something that I feel requires a bit of work to get right, but as always, consistency is key, and I have faith in us, my friends, that will master this technique at some point because it really makes your paintings look more professional. Another thing that I've noticed is that you can apply these hard edges much easier if they're just lighting shapes. So if you feel overwhelmed while trying to apply it as shadows on clothes and skin, maybe try with some more simple lighting shapes like these. Moving on to the next tip, I think I've mentioned this before, but I feel like this is such a game changer to any painting, so I'm gonna keep saying it. And that is adding gradients to everything and anything you ever paint. Seriously though. In this painting, I could only apply gradients to the hair since I had something different in mind for the clothes and the background, but I usually add some type of gradient to pretty much everything. And it can be a simple gradient from dark to light, or it can be a colorful gradient of basically colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, which I actually prefer. And I think this is such a powerful tool because it kind of forces you to work with multiple colors when you get to rendering, which will make your painting look more interesting instead of the classic rendering that has just darker and lighter values of the same color you chose as a base, you know? So yeah, don't hesitate to try adding gradients to enhance your paintings and give them a nice aesthetic. Now, staying in the color zone, I just want to add that the curves and color balance tools are your best friends as a digital artist, or I guess second best friend after the liquify tool. These guys can help you in the beginning as well as the end of your painting, and this is how I use them. So because in my workflow I choose to lay down the base color of every object on separate layers, sometimes I don't totally like how the colors look together, so I find it easier to select, let's say, the skin color and play around with the curves and color balance until I get it right, rather than trying a bunch of similar tones in a color wheel. I just think it's much faster and easier to modify them this way. Now at the very end, I usually save the painting as a PNG and re-upload it on Procreate, so I don't work on layers anymore at this point. I use these tools on the whole thing, mainly to play around with the tones of the shadows and the highlights. So it's nothing dramatic, but you can easily change the aesthetic of your whole painting by playing around with these. Another thing that can help you set the mood of your painting or just add some cool finishing touches that will make it stand out is using effects, or adjustment layers as they're called. Don't be afraid to experiment with layer modes because there are many creative ways you can use them. But here I'll mention the ones that I use in all of my paintings, starting with overlay and multiply. I personally use these to add some extra depth to my shadows because I find it much easier to use one of these layer modes instead of trying out a bunch of different shades to darken the shadows over and over again. So this is once again a time saver for me that will help me finish a painting in 10 years instead of 20. So thank you, layer modes. The next effect I find pretty useful is the perspective blur or the Gaussian blur. It's fine to blur out some details of the painting because it will also help attract the viewer's eyes to the focal point of your drawing, which in my case here is her extra sparkly and colorful face. And sometimes I use the pencil option of this effect in case I only want to blur some areas of the painting instead of the whole thing. And lastly, my favorite effect of all, the chromatic aberration. Again, you can use this on the whole painting or just on some areas, but I really think it intensifies the edges, the details and the colors. It's just amazing. Truly amazing. 10 out of 10. And we've come down to the final tip, and I think I saved the best for last, because once I discovered this piece of information, which by the way I don't even know how it got into my brain, but once it did, I ran with it and never looked back. I guess this is kind of like a homework for all of you, my artist friends that want to improve your art. So I really want you to think long and hard about your low points regarding your drawing skills. And please don't be like, oh, but I draw so badly, my art is a low point itself. Like, just don't, okay? Don't. Let's not do that. Just use your observational skills and pick one specific thing that you know 100% you're bad at. Because this mindset of I have so much to learn on so many levels that I don't even know where to start is very, very toxic, and it will only hold you back. Once you pick one or two things that you know you're not the best at and specifically improve on, you will see a change in your mindset and your confidence. So, for example, at this point in my art journey, I want to specifically improve my line art and the way that I shade clothes. These are two of the things I know for sure I'd like to improve on. And it doesn't even matter that I have like 10 other things that I know I'm not good at. Right now, I choose to improve on these two so I don't feel so overwhelmed. So what do we do now? Well, we look at how other artists do it, basically. We observe their line art and the way they shade clothes, we gather pictures, we do studies, and we learn from it. We do it over and over again, we're consistent about it, and then we'll see improvement. After we're done, we move on to the next thing that we think is our low point, and so on. Because you see, I don't think we look at our paintings and hate everything about them all the time. I feel like the things we don't like are kind of the same every time, and they always stand out to us. So today it might be line art, and tomorrow it might be backgrounds, I don't know. The important thing is to be consistent about observing and learning. The more we do it, the better. But yeah, these are my tips for improving your art, no matter your skill level. I really hope it was helpful, and if it was, please leave a like so I know you enjoyed watching my video. And if there's some other topic you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below, because I do read all of them. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like these, and I'll see you next time. Bye!